Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case, looking at the latest news and discussions. A new post or repost has come up on Reddit, credit to them, regarding Sarah Long, the sister to Stevie Howard, talking about the Noah Presgrove case, more so the situation at the highway and kind of ruling out the possibility of Noah being dumped on the highway and the talk about the blood loss as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Sarah Long has to say about that. There's a reference to the teeth as well. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be looking at it today, what Sarah Long has had to say. I might react and share my thoughts on the matter if possible, compare, contrast. And anyone watching, you can share your thoughts as well and reactions in the comment section down below under this video. And for those that are currently here in this live premiere, welcome. Share your thoughts in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. If anyone is interested in previous coverage or my video that I uploaded earlier today, top right corner of the screen where the I symbol is, you click over there, you will be able to find it. So feel free to catch up on stuff you may have missed out on, so you get the full picture of where things are at and what's currently gone down. There's been some very strange stuff occurring. And as well, last but not least, if you do want to support this channel, for example, down below, there'll be a pinned comment by me with some additional links if you want to do so. With that all being said and done, we'll just get straight into it. Here we are. So this was posted 14 hours ago. Credit to Fabulous Coffee. Title reads, Sarah, the aunt to the host, Avery Combs, at the party when Noah Presgrove was last seen alive, speaking with witnesses at Noah's crime scene, the highway, part 3. Part number 3. So what about part 2, part 1? Unless that came about in the past, whatever, let's just see what's going on here at least. Sarah, the aunt to Avery, yep, just click her. I can't seem to see a date, which is unfortunate, but I'll just read it out anyway and you can react if you want. A little bit smaller text. Maybe I might zoom in myself just to make it easier for me. Okay. Sarah Long responding back to some person saying, the witnesses I've spoken to that were at the scene all have stated it looked like his head wound was a cut or deep scrape, like his chin, mouth, nose and top of his forehead was scraped. 2 witnesses I've spoken with that were very close to the body. What does that mean, very close to the body? What, at the time? Earlier on? Does that apply to Jack? Does that apply to truck drivers? I wonder. No name mentioned them, but to do with the 2 close individuals stated that there was blood loss near the body, especially his head. Enough that a volunteer firefighter, no name mentioned, cleaned off the highway after the scene was processed. Is that so? Just based off like how news reports have gone about and how it's been described online and through media, they kept going on about a lack of blood, and the blood that was present, what you saw stained on the ground, was just a little blob. Didn't see any blood splatter. You talk about blood loss, you're saying blood near the body or the head, but how much exactly? Is it the same patch what we've seen? The photo what we've seen, or was there more? Then it was cleaned up. I mean, if that was the case, how it's then been reported was like they've underestimated it. But for most part of it, the consistent story was there was lacking blood, and even some experts were confused by it, found it odd. So that's interesting. And who is this volunteer firefighter cleaning it off the ground, I wonder? So it says, I think the telling sign that Noah died on the highway was his tooth that was found near his body. It takes a lot of force to cause a tooth to fracture, not to mention the trauma inside the mucosal membranes. If he would have sustained trauma to his oral cavity in another spot, it would have been difficult to gather up the teeth or broken fragments of teeth and transport these whilst moving a body and not spilling a drop of blood on anyone's vehicles or the ATV. The ATV and back of the trucks at the party were all cleared. None of those had blood. Are you saying that all of the vehicles and the ATV from the party were cleared by police and checked? I mean, at least how I've heard it worded for most part of it was they weren't checked. The property wasn't checked. Not much was checked at all. So what's going on here? Is this a contradiction or is it the truth? First time I've really heard this before, right? So, where do we start here? Sarah's saying that it looks like that he died on the highway because of the key sign of the tooth found near his body. I mean, the thing is, you could get attacked or something could happen to you, major impact or force elsewhere, and you could be transported further down. If the teeth were dislodged or loosened at the time of wherever the impact took place, and you're careful with handling the body, and then you dumped the body onto the ground, hitting the ground, bouncing or whatever, could have caused the loose teeth or the odd loose tooth to fall out. So there is that. But at least how it's mentioned here by Sarah is saying that it couldn't have happened anywhere else in terms of dying. It had to be the highway. Sarah also saying how he couldn't have been transported from point A to point B because of the no blood found on vehicles, but I think Sarah forgets that people do have the ability of cleaning up after themselves if they wish to, depending on the scenario. But while she's denying or more so debunking or disagreeing with this and that of some form of foul play, she isn't saying whether it's an accident or a murder within this paragraph. That's kind of interesting. I mean, do you think as a viewer that the tooth found near to the body is the key and only indicator that proves that Noah was killed on the spot on the highway or not? I mean, the broken chain could imply that something happened at the highway for the chain to break. Whether that be being hit, being dragged, pulled by the chain, the neck area, or it just being ripped off completely, but the chain was left behind, so there was no attempt made to take it off Noah and take it away from the area. Okay, let's just move on to the next page if it will allow me, and I'll try and zoom in again, just make it a lot easier. ATV, back of the trucks at the party were all cleared. Back of the trucks were all cleared, no blood on them present, none were cleaned. Is that because they still appeared dirty? Now, when we talk about vehicles being cleaned or not, it reminds me of the Dylan Rounds case debacle. It was crazy that, but why are we talking about the back of the trucks being cleared? What about the front of the truck? What about inside of the truck? Whereas what Sarah getting at here is that the back of these trucks, more so pickup trucks where you would normally store things, or a person could sit in the back, or a body could be placed in the back and not in the passenger seat. But it's weird how Sarah is very specific about what area of the truck was checked and no blood was present there. But what about the inside of the truck? See, this is the thing. You could have a truck, a vehicle, a car, which is muddy, dirty on the outside, remains as it is natural. The inside, though, could be cleaned down if whatever was being stored was inside of the vehicle and not on top of the vehicle or round the back. So there is that. Anything else? The teeth on the lower mandibular arch when fracturing normally end up in the lower vestibule or floor of the mouth, like his autopsy revealed. I can't imagine a bunch of drunk teenagers would have enough sense to find his lost tooth fragments in the dark in a wheat field. Why are we talking about a wheat field? Much less gather up teeth fragments from a field, then transport a body and teeth into a vehicle without a trace of blood and place them perfectly near the body to stage a scene. So Sarah doesn't think the scene was staged. It never happened, that form of foul play wasn't the case, but obviously there was enough interest to replace shorts from black to white. So, if it's not a scene to be staged, no foul play going on, there wasn't any need to replace the shorts after, was there? That is weird. And what I don't get is why Sarah is giving a scenario or an example specifically to do with a wheat field. Why are we even talking about a field? collecting teeth fragments in the dark in a wheat field. That sounds like you're giving an example. That sounds like a slip of the tongue. Kind of like how Stevie Howard said, if we were responsible, we would have done a better job. It's like, why are you even saying that type of thing in the first place? And then maybe there's been a slip of the tongue with Jack as well. It's like, you're giving a scenario or an example, but you're being very specific that it could indirectly imply that's what happened or where it happened. A wheat field, where would a wheat field be? Near to the property, at the party house, round the back, by the side of the building? And you're saying, if Noah was killed or his teeth were loosened in the field nearby, wow. How weird. Anyway, let's move on. Probably near the body. I can't imagine these kids being able to carry that out, not to mention urine. Usually when the body dies, urine or fecal matter is excreted from the body, and I can't imagine these kids could scoop up his urine and place it on the highway either. Investigators have already identified his urine was found near his body, as well as other fluids that belonged to him. I think these artifacts help them determine he died at the highway, and this was not a murder, but an accident. Oh, now they fill it in with a possible accident. Okay? So, to all those individuals out there that supposedly think it's an accident, do they want justice for Noah? Just like how the other people want justice for Noah, but their reasons behind the cause of death is different. So, like, if you had to try and reach out for a consensus, whether you're on the dark side or the light side, the right or the wrong side, regardless, is it that 100% of people within this case community, whether they're at war with one another or not, do they all want justice for Noah, yes or no? Or could some not want justice for Noah? You get what I'm saying? You might get some people directly in the case who, at one point at least, genuinely believed it was an accident because they just couldn't fathom the possibility that people that they know or close to could be responsible. Like a self-defense mechanism of denial, delusionalism, escaping from reality because it's too hurtful, painful, scary. But there could well be some out there that either convince themselves or trying to convince others like it's something else when it's not. But it's not to mention urine. Usually when the body dies, is excreted. I can't imagine these kids could scoop up and place it at the highway. But this is the thing, if a person was killed or somehow died in a different spot, will the urine and the sheet, will it be excreted immediately after death? Or is it like 5 minutes after, 10 minutes afterwards, that's when all the stuff falls out, comes out? If there's a certain time period and frame, you could still argue and say that taken out elsewhere, then moved to the highway in time for the excretion of the bodily fluids. Does anyone agree or not? Let me zoom out. There we go. And what else? That belonged to him. I think these artifacts helped them determine he had died on the highway, not a murder but an accident, so hence the reason it's not being investigated as a murder, and Oklahoma Highway Patrol is still leading investigation. What's the reactions from people? What do people have to say about that? Newest. Lala, my major concern with this case is justice. Who's going to receive justice? At this point, the people who are alive are protecting their freedoms at all cost, which I get, but this is another level and layer of corruption in this town that will impact everyone for at least another generation. Look at this place's legacy at this point. We've all spent months here looking at conversations, reports, media, more, and even people involved have dark legacy going back years. This town is cursed by the Comanche. I say this with respect. This is Comanche land. The legacy of the land lives beyond these people. My concern is Noah and the truth remain buried together. It could be another 20 years before the real truth is revealed. Intrepid says, can someone with a medical background comment on the urine and bodily fluids? How does she know all these details about no blood in the truck bed, urine at the scene? I've never heard any of this. It feels like inside leaked details that may or may not be substantiated, but she's stating as facts. She said, what, speaking to other witnesses and those closer to this scenario. What I want to get at is, how come these type of individuals, the Sarah Longs, the Stevie Howards, they do a lot of talking online and passing on information, but why is it always second-hand or third-party information? Why is it always them being the spokespeople? They weren't within the case. They weren't there at the time, but they're like taking centre role as in being the spokespersons, relaying information and details on which may or may not be true. Why are they doing it? How come the horses' mouths can't come up themselves and say it? It's interesting how Sarah Long isn't revealing the names of these witnesses or individuals. Is that for legal reasons? I don't know. Word says, CSI Jody said he was crushed. Who the hell's Jody? Oh, Jody Barth. Yeah, unfortunate last name, but yeah, I remember that mention of being crushed with great force, with both shoulders crushed and ribs, injuries in the back. One medical examiner that read the autopsy report stated that probably a vehicle was involved. Was that in People article? Read it in a published article. CSI Jody also said the teeth could have fallen from his mouth if he was moved to the highway. Yeah, so like, if your teeth were dislodged or somewhat loose on the verge of falling out, and you're not so much face down on the ground, but on your side or on your back where you face up, the teeth aren't going to fall out. If you roll the person over or tilt them upside down because of the gravity, it's going to fall out and fall to the ground. So like, if the teeth were dislodged, the odd one or more, but they didn't fall out at the time when the body was picked up and then dumped possibly on the side of the highway, and because he was twisted and on his side, that was possible for teeth or a tooth to fall out. And there's talk about blood loss or not, a patch of blood there, what we saw on the highway. Oh, supposedly some of it was cleaned up. How much of it was cleaned up though? Was there any documentation or photos of that blood? Because if so, at least through all the articles that I've read, official news groups, they were saying that there was a lack of blood, and it was a bit odd. So why is it all mixed up there? And how come there was no blood splatter, right? If it's really true that it all happened at the highway, and that's what Sarah strongly believes, and on the basis of it being an accident, how come there's no blood splatter, right? Perfectly lined up on the side of the road. Does that normally happen? Look at it this way. Sometimes when you see animals, dead ones, roadkill, they're on the side of the road. Oh, is that because that's where they were found naturally? No. It's because they've been killed on the road, in the dark or light, depends how dodgy people are driving, and sometimes it's out of your control. Hit the animal. It could stumble to the side, or it could be on the side of one of the lanes, or in the middle. Depending how it's hit and from what angle, and with the force, speed behind it, momentum, it can fling things into the distance possibly, or clip it to the side. But often the animals, the dead ones, are picked up and dropped to the side, so no one runs over it anymore. It happens. I've seen it in real life. So as for Noah's body, if it was an accident, if there's anyone that genuinely believes that, do you honestly think that he was hit and somehow lined up perfectly on the side of the highway, the road? I mean, if you were clipped or hit in a certain direction and smacked, like with the mirror claim of a vehicle or truck, the height of it, would it have made contact with Noah's head depending on the height of him? I don't know, maybe not. But somehow he was clipped or hit. You would have thought he would have fell into the ditch or the grass verge where the grass is, and not just the hard shoulder. So just a little point I wanted to throw in. Let's just catch up with what's being put here. Said the teeth could have fallen out of his mouth, moved to the highway. Former retired FBI guy that spoke on a video stated that if it was a hit and run on the highway, those teeth would have gone flying. Didn't Cindy on Partners in True Crime mention something about corn based on a above posted text that those info sifted, refuted, covered? No clue. Corn, wheat, are we talking about a field where it actually happened, the death of Noah? A weird reference by Sarah, giving an example because we've never really talked about a wheat field. We've never even talked about a field. Okay, it's a rural area. You see a lot of fields and farmland and private land nearby, but with Noah, it was at party, possibly left party, walked away, down dirt road, possibly towards highway. No mention of fields. Now, yeah, I've done my own map analysis highlighting fields and the woodland area, only myself. But for Sarah to mention if teeth were found over there and collected and gathered to then be taken to the highway to stage it, which isn't the case, well, if you're talking about teeth being in a field, it sounds like Sarah is a bit of a slip of the tongue, kind of like giving a scenario that if Noah was killed in a field, why would he be in a field? Why are we even giving that example? What weird. Anyway, Joe, don't put effort into thinking there's value in Sarah Long's post other than how they emphasise what she's trying to hide. This is the second one she claims there was so much blood at the scene. The shadowy volunteer firefighter had to clean it up. She keeps leaning into suggesting a hit and run and not the first one. How many times does she say I can't imagine and suddenly describes details like a premeditated student? Pathological liars, there's usually some giveaways in what they say, hidden and spun, but it's there if one can read. But it's also strange that his teeth were all laying beside his body. I mean, how many teeth were out of his mouth and on the floor? 1, 2, how many? Because I remember it being on the article, one of them, Daily Mail, saying, here's a chalk circle outline of where a tooth was found. 1 tooth. How many, though, were on the side of the highway or just on the road? 1 or more. Ooh, Sunny. There we go. Pure. She's making herself and her family look worse and worse. Let her keep running her mouth and maybe she'll be the one who outs all the guilty parties, including herself. Wailing, dentist hair, teeth are ridiculously easy to fracture. Clenching and grinding easily causes fractures on molars and premolars. Also, the fact that the tooth was found outside the body allegedly doesn't indicate fracture at all. Can you elaborate on that? Okay. 2 cents. The teeth could have been expelled on the highway by Noah breathing his last breath, or because the body was moved and dumped on the highway, and depending how he landed, teeth could have fallen out there if they were already loose. Therefore, shifting the broken teeth caused them to fall out of his mouth. They'd probably sound like pebbles and wouldn't be noticed. The scenarios are endless when speculating, however, the wheat field. First I've heard that mentioned. Exactly. Yes. Why was that scenario given? Very weird. Might be more to it, you never know. Jade. Now, is that the Jade from my channel? I don't know. Everything out the family's mouth is a different story every time. The time will come. I can't wait for the family's downfall. Sick of the mouse. I don't trust anything from that family, but these posts by so long now with a sudden medical vocabulary. I know, that came out of nowhere. Had me thinking she knows what happened and who was involved. Or maybe read from a script or some kind of like autopsy or just medical terms to sound more intelligent. You never know. As for her claim, no teenagers could have done that. Is she suggesting Avery Combs' involvement as she is no teenager? Yeah. Maybe it's just loose language, calling everyone a teenager, calling everyone a kid when they're not a kid. It could be just loose language, but if you look at it specifically, you say no teenagers could have done that. Well, yeah. Avery wasn't a teenager. I guess some of the Texas boys weren't teenagers. So the adults could have done something. Yeah, I can understand that, how you can look at it out other ways. Hungry? My God, family has money, but they have no brains. They make themselves look so guilty of hiding information so much. Pure agrees. Intrepid? I get she doesn't think the body was moved. It still doesn't mean that an incident on the highway involving the partygoers didn't happen. Sure, maybe it wasn't murder, but it's definitely still homicide. And in terms of, I think, official Facebook post by, Oklahoma Highway Patrol, in 2023, they were treating it as a homicide traffic case, but I don't think it was really followed up after that, but it was at one point considered a homicide. HH? Let them speak, baby. We all know kids are very much capable of doing the most horrible things, and where's her proof that any of the vehicles were ever examined for DNA? The way she texted all that with so much detail makes me believe she knows exactly what happened to Noah and the people involved. Shameful. Puzzle. Ellie never went to the house that night, so how could they examine all the truck beds? If Ellie checked the beds after the crime occurred, too late and anyone guilty would have washed the bed by then. She's so full of BS. Also, who in Ellie or volunteer firefighter would be releasing details of investigation to her? If her Bill, whatever that means, told her, he should be removed. Massive says, the telling sign that he died, there was teeth. Really? Because teeth are so heavy and hard to move, right? Also interesting, she points out how he died in a wheat field. They couldn't find the teeth to move it as well, as pointing out that no teenagers could have done so. Is she confirming that he died in a wheat field? Yeah, there we go. Very weird, isn't it? So some people think the same as me. Well, there's a lot of comments. Love, why would she say wheat field? Why would she say no teenagers could have moved him? Does that mean adults did? I don't believe anything family says. Could his teeth not have been knocked loose in a previous attack elsewhere and then just fallen out when he was dumped? You never know. Not saying this happened, but in the thick of the haze, post about the case, there was also reports of someone picking up or moving his teeth, right? Oh God, not that again. Could have picked them up. Yeah. Either that or they picked up his teeth after beating him and attempted to stage a hit and run. Those people. It appears to be there. Interesting. I guess whilst we're at it, might as well go on to the maps briefly. Brief map analysis because of the whole talk of a wheat field. Just got to make sure I'm in the correct spot first of all. There we go. Party house. A lot of land behind it. Right? A lot of land. And on that side as well. Just about all of it is greenery. I don't see any wheat exactly, but it depends the time of the season. It depends which field. There's a lot of land nearby and on the other side as well. That looks like it could be farming related. Nevertheless, the reason why it's interesting, they talk about a wheat field or just a field in general. What would Noah or anyone be doing in those fields late at night? Early morning. I mean, I don't think it was answered, but my question was originally when Caden was talking about Sunday afternoon getting towards when it was getting dark. Caden said him, Noah, Jack, and some of the guys, maybe Brylan, maybe Isaac, went out hunting, shooting birds, I think, and was it hogs? Some other animals, right? Not that it was that significant, but where did that happen? People say that the dove hunt was nearby, but what about this like off subject, different, event of hunting birds, hunting whatever, when Caden was there Sunday, getting towards Sunday night with Noah and Jack? Where were they exactly? Where were they driving? Does anyone know? Was it off-road? Was it across the fields near to the woodland? That would be good to know, out of interest. But the reason why it's weird, if it was like a little hint that might be where Noah was killed somehow. What I was getting at is, yeah, it looks more wheaty. Don't even know if that's a word, that, but vegetation's different there, time of the season and stuff. That looks like it's all been farmed and prepared and whatnot. But it is fenced off. You might not be able to see it because of the vegetation, but it's fenced off, like a fence line to stop people from getting in. Same there. You might not be able to see it, but further up, there you go. You can see a little post, barbed wire, right? So there's like a perimeter all the way around, unless there's a gate somewhere. If Noah somehow did die in a field, kind of like name dropped with a scenario by Sarah, what was Noah doing over there? A field like that where, if it's dark, early hours of the morning or night time, you'd have a difficulty trying to find loose teeth in a field. Why were we even talking about a field? The party itself was on the property land just down there. which, yes, there's big fields surrounding the areas, but it's also fenced off as well. So, you know, there probably will be gates you can access easily, but still, other parts fenced off, barbed wire, you're not going to be climbing over that. It doesn't sound responsible, it sounds a bit reckless, you could hurt yourself. And why would any party goers be going into any of the fields, wheat fields nearby? What would be the purpose of that? Was Noah trying to escape, run away, and he was being chased down? But then why not just go down the dirt road to the highway? Is it because the highway is too dangerous then? Because of the moving vehicles, you could get hit. But if you're going across the fields, you should be safer. Not quite. Because it's dark, you can't see where you're putting your foot. I don't know, you could go into a ditch, you could twist your ankle if the ground was uneven. And if you're trying to climb over the fences, if it's barbed wire, you could hurt yourself there. So, although there's like no proof or evidence at this moment to say that that's where it did happen, for it to be like name dropped as a suggestion or a scenario by Sarah, who seems to know certain things about the case with her language and wording, I don't know if it was like a mistake made. Or it doesn't hold much weight, it depends. But the access to it, it just wouldn't make sense. You're at a party, running across a field or going into a field just seems a bit random, unnecessary. You know, the party is at the house and even on the outside of the property. That's where the party and the focus is, where people are having fun. I mean, you're name dropping a field, a wheat field. Oh, is that where Noah supposedly wandered off at some point and was retrieved by people? Is that a reference to that? I wonder. So maybe not just this, what we've looked at today, but more so other things previously, how the story changes, switches, turns, or new information, new things are added on to what's pre-existing. New people are brought in. Oh, it wasn't that person to see the last individual, it was someone else. All these extra additions, it's almost a year on, and supposedly new information is coming out now, which is a bit weird. At the end of the day, if all of this, whether it's true or false, was said right at the beginning, everything, all in one go, that would have been a bit better. But when new details start coming out later, it does become more questionable. If someone started speaking out now because they're safe to do so, they're not in danger, they're protected now, you can understand them speaking at a delayed time. Because in the past they couldn't because they were scared, feared for their life. But these individuals who don't fear for their life and they don't seem to be in danger for most part of it, who are adding on details and they're within the case or they've involved themselves within the case, that's just a bit weird. So you could argue and say there's a handful of things that could have been done or said a lot earlier on, consistent or not, if it was just all said earlier on, would have been better. But when it starts changing or things being added with time, it becomes a bit of a pantomime and people then start not believing in it or become very sceptical of the individuals that are changing it up and altering. I can understand that. Hopefully you found this video somewhat interesting. I don't know the date of when Sarah Long said this stuff. No date was given on screen, that's unfortunate. But it just goes to show that there are still people out there active and talking elsewhere. Some people may come across as experts or sound like they're experts. Are they really experts? Who knows? But I still got some catching up to do on certain posts, bit of research as well. I'll try and get that done when there's time. But I'll leave it there for now. If you want to share the video, feel free to do so. And thanks for being patient. Goodbye, good night for now.